You didn't get too much into the actual political fundraising, but there's many who believe that fundraising has gotten out of control, that a state Senate campaign is a $20+ million enterprise, running for president is a $1 billion+ enterprise. One, do you think it is out of control? And two, do you think it's time to have some type of campaign finance reform?
You know, I think that as it comes to political fundraising, it's important to always operate within the law, and the law always changes. I think that there will probably become a point in time where there's a discussion about campaign finance laws and whether McCain-Feingold is the best way to operate at the federal level. And so I think that conversation is something that continues to evolve and continues to happen, and I think after this, I think it'll continue to be something that people are concerned about.
And just for those of you that have never given politically or maybe don't know a lot about that, there are both federal, state, and local laws that dictate how much an individual can give, or if a company can even give federally to a race for, say, the U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate. An individual can only give $5,400, and corporations cannot give at all. And those individuals are disclosed in a public filing through the Federal Election Commission, which if you ask other countries, that's usually pretty amazing that that's something so public, where their employer and occupation is also disclosed. But what you've seen a lot is these outside groups coming in and raising millions and millions of dollars because they don't necessarily have the same limits. Well, there are some regulation around them. The limits aren't there. Corporates can give. There are a lot of loopholes within McCain-Feingold. So I think Katie has a really good example just in Senator Gardner's race in terms of how much was raised. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah, so you know, Senator Gardner raised about $13 million. Mark Udall raised about $18 million, and then the outside groups spent double that. So it was a $100 million race for one U.S. Senate race, and more than half of the money was not in any way coordinated with either of the two candidates. So you have a situation where because you can't coordinate legally with those outside groups that are advocating either for your success or demise, that there is an outside group that you can't control, and that does somewhat frame the conversation.
And specifically, Colorado has certain limits on donations for the State House and Senate. And as someone who ran for office years ago, I know how hard it is to raise at $200 a clip. So maybe just talk a little bit about the difference between the federal and the state as well.
So state law is, as Brian mentioned, a lot more restrictive. To a statewide race, an individual can only give $1,150, correct, Natalie? Yes. She's working on a statewide race right now. And there's no corporate contribution. So in terms of how much you raise for a statewide race or a state house or state senate seat, it's really difficult to do because you have to talk to a lot of people and raise it in small chunks at a time.
Yeah. You guys want to add? Okay.
She got it.
So obviously you've been through a lot together, and it hasn't all been rainbows and unicorns. Maybe it has. I don't know. I know for my business it always hasn't been. What has been one of your biggest challenges or things that you've had to deal with as a team?
Well, we like to say that there's probably not a life experience that one of us hasn't experienced. So, you know, from having pretty significant health scares where one of us had to step away from the business for a while and didn't really publicly tell people that, to having divorces, to getting married, to having children, to pretty much there's like nothing I would say that we haven't. We've lived life together, and I think part of that is the successes, but a lot of that is the hard parts of life. And we've been really lucky that we just have, you know, always said that that was part of the experience. And what's funny is I feel like I'm married to two people, my husband and then my business partner.
We celebrate our anniversary.
We do. And my love language is gifts, so usually she buys me something.
I'll say that, you know, on the business side, there have been a few times, so Katie and I, how we divide our book of business is that we usually don't ever touch the same client. So Katie will work on client projects and I'll work on client projects. And then our team also, will work kind of across that filter, but we rarely work together, in some cases maybe on a presidential race. But there have been some times where, we've had a client who's considering running for office, and as one of their senior staff members, individually we'll learn that before we can divulge that to our partner. And so we've always, that's been challenging to work through because communication's always been our number one priority. But we also have that understanding that client confidentiality, especially in the space that we operate in politics, is crucial.
I've always said that, life happens. The question is, what do you do with it? And I know in my business, going through 2008 and the down economy was one of the most challenging times, and it was very bloody. But you learn some great lessons through that process, and it makes you stronger in the end. The question is, do you actually learn the lesson?